Good evening, folks, and a hearty welcome to our drive-in theater.
See, in this world, there's two kinds of people, my friend. Those with loaded guns, and those who dig. You dig.
No one's ever made movies like him before or after. I think watching all of his films, that man inside and very close to the surface was still a boy playing cowboys.
When a man with a .45 meets a man with a rifle, you said the man with the pistol's a dead man. Let's see if that's true.
We try to make this guy a little bit unique. You're not quite sure who he is. You're not even quite sure he's the hero.
I believe they are the beginning of modern cinema.
How many other filmmakers turn down The Godfather to make the movie they really, really want to make?
I've been looking for you for 8 months. Whenever I should have had a gun in my right hand, I thought of you. Now I find you in exactly the position that suits me.
When you have to shoot, don't talk.
And now for our feature presentation.
Sergio Leone is my personal favourite artist. When I first saw The Good, the Bad and the Ugly when I was a little kid, I was transfixed. It swept me away like nothing I had ever experienced before. Sergio Leone is one of the most influential storytellers ever born. And if you've never heard of his name, I guarantee your favourite filmmaker cherishes this man. His influence on cinema is undeniable, and it is impossible to encapsulate. Because Leone, he didn't just invent a whole new subgenre of movies, he invented a brand new cinematic language.
Kinetic genre action-making cinema was pretty much born the day Fistful of Dollars was born.
And the thing that I find most fascinating is that Leone never even visited America before he made Fistful of Dollars. And yet in many ways, it was more honest about the history of America at that time than any Western made in the United States. It can truly take an outsider to see things a little differently. Because Sergio, he both loved American Westerns and despised them.
I first saw these films in the 60s. We loved American music. We loved American clothes. We were the children of Marx and Coca-Cola. We love Western movies, but we don't quite buy what they stand for. What Leone succeeded in doing was retelling the story for a generation which didn't believe in it anymore. He became more and more sort of disillusioned with the mythology. All these Wild West myths were all a sham. What lay behind it was a lie.
You see, the real Old West was a brutal existence, and a beautiful one all the same. With a homicide rate higher than any city today, it was a tough existence. Many people were barely holding on, rich with both endless opportunity and endless sorrow.
These were all dreams he had as a child. He told me, when I was a little child, I dreamed about Westerns and heroes and the bad guys. And I would think of these stories, and it made my life interesting. He loved the cowboys, the West, because it had a kind of freedom to express any kind of activity you wanted.
And the titular American Western director, John Ford, was Sergio's favourite filmmaker. And yet, he despised so much of what his films had to say. He felt most of them were nothing more than propagandist pieces about the brave white man venturing into the untamed West and slaying the evil, savage natives in the name of freedom. Sergio, he was a student of history. He knew this was not the reality of the average person of the West. The natives were victims, not villains. And Fistful of Dollars took the American Western myth of the cowboy hero and turned it on its head.
America was seen as a model of freedom and modernity. Here was a completely different thing. You could see this other world. And this young child growing up in Trastevere loved those fairy tales.
Peckinpah and Leone, each in their own way, understood the power of John Ford's films. They took the mythic aspect and they just twisted in another direction, specifically toward capitalism, exploitation, oppression, war, empire building.
1943-44, after the Salerno landings, the American troops came north and came to Rome. And Leone said it came as a real shock to meet real-life Americans for the first time, with these GIs who chased our women, who sold cigarettes on the black market, who behaved like soldiers behave. I couldn't see in them anything of those characters I'd seen on the screen.
Ford
Quando un attore apre la finestra, è sempre per guardare l'immenso futuro che c'ha davanti. Nei miei, quando aprono la finestra, hanno solo il terrore e la paura di ricevere una palla in mezzo agli occhi.
Sergio's most infamous Western hero is the man with no name, played by Clint Eastwood. But he was not the traditional American Western hero, no. He scammed people, he killed people, and did whatever he needed to get ahead.
I mean, our partnership is untied. Oh no. Wait. Not you. You remain tied. I'll keep the money and you can have the rope.
You filthy double-crossing bastard! Of all the stinking dirty tricks!
Way back to town is only 70 miles. Now, if you save your breath, I feel a man like you could manage it. Adios.
In a world so vicious, what other options does a man have? Sergio suggests something profound. The idea that being lawful and being moral are not mutually exclusive. A criminal can be a hero, and a sheriff, well, they can be a villain. Good and evil exist inside each and every person.
It showed a world of heroes and demons. And at the same time as it showed such iconic symbols of good and evil, it also showed them with nuance. Good definitely had evil, and evil had good.
These very attractive characters who are complete anarchists, who don't give a damn. Ballsy characters who represent the heart of the movie.
There is nobody on this earth that isn't complex. And of course, that is what is so magical about spaghetti westerns. They provide a new looking glass. And Sergio's films, they say just as much about Italy and Europe as they do America. When Sergio was a kid, he was aligned with socialism. And then in the 1960s, Italy became a hotbed of revolution.
This is the way it began here this Wednesday. Picket lines in front of the HLL building.
And slowly but surely, Sergio began to witness thousands of people die in the name of revolution. And yet it seemed to lead to nothing, except the suffering of many innocent people left far worse off than they had been before.
Italian politics was very, very unstable in the late 1960s, and terrorism appeared on the streets of Rome for the first time ever. And the trauma of bombs going off in Rome affected everyone and made them very uneasy about politics. And in fact, Leone at this time said he was looking at the obituary columns with great interest because his friends had started appearing.
Sergio began to grow apathetic to the political world. He began to see war and revolution as nothing more than the passing of the torch from one elite power to another. Everyday people were left with nothing but irreversible trauma. And this internal torment found its way embedded into each one of his films.
So he weaves his own history and the history that he'd lived through into these movies.
Leone is not an ideological sort of character, just as he isn't an intellectual. He's not that interested in party politics. But he has this sense that it's a mess and that he doesn't trust political parties and professional politicians very much.
The most poignant and darkest portrayal of these ideas exists in his beautiful 1971 film, Duck You Sucker, aka Once Upon a Time in the Revolution.
Sergio Leone, the master of adventure, who brought you A Fistful of Dollars, For a Few Dollars More, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, now brings Rod Steiger and James Coburn together to blow you apart.
Duck, you sucker.
You come here to join the revolution.
Oh, one was enough for me. Rod Steiger as Juan, a mean, filthy, greedy, rotten, bloodthirsty bandit. When his finger gets itchy, someone gets scratched. James Coburn as John, the exploding Irishman, a walking stick of dynamite with a very short fuse. Rub him the wrong way, and he'll go off in your face. Duck, you sucker.
Coming to this theater soon.
He was very interested in making a film, an anti-revolutionary Mexican Revolution film, which basically shows how messy revolution is and how in the end militarism tends to win.
The mythology of revolution is very, very strong in the post-1968 film world in Europe. A lot of political movies being made in the wake of the student riots. And Leone just wouldn't buy all that. He said it's a myth. The myth of the Mexican Revolution in the movies as a clean, heroic, sort of activity. It was dirty. It was much more complicated than that. An awful lot of people got shot.
The revision of the myth. It adopted the anti-mythic approach. Myths are bad. Here's the reality.
Revolution, please don't try to tell me about revolution. I know all about the revolutions and how they start. The people that read the books, they go to the people that don't read the books. They put people and say, ho, the time has come to have a change, huh?
The people who read the books. Or the people can't read the books. The poor people and say, we have to have a change. So the poor people make the change, huh?
And then the people who read the books, they all sit around the big polished tables and they talk and talk and talk and eat and eat and eat, huh? But what has happened to the poor people? They're dead! That's your revolution.
Dakyusaka was the film when Leone really began to grow up. He's making a point about contemporary Italy, which he'd never done before, and he's making a point about his own background because he grew up in a socialist background. His father was a socialist filmmaker in the 1910s and 20s and had fallen out with Mussolini's regime, as a result of which he didn't work hardly at all when Leone was growing up. So he's rejecting his own background, he's rejecting Italian politics, he's rejecting 1968, and he's rejecting the myth of the Mexican Revolution. And that's a very mature thing to do. The revolution is not a gala dinner. The revolution is not a piece of embroidery. It's not a nice, gentle, good-natured thing. The revolution is an act of violence. And the violence has consequences. It's not fun anymore. The double crosses have consequences. The betrayals have consequences. People die. Families die. Once upon a time, here are all these fairy tales. Bet you thought this. Bet you thought the Mexican Revolution was like this. The revolution, this is what it's like. In Dakyusaka, there are references to a famous massacre of Roman civilians that took place in 1944. There's a direct reference to that in Dakyusaka with the cave of San Isidro, where Juan's family and lots of other civilians are massacred. Everyone would have recognized that. There's an actor in Dakyusaka who resembles the young Mussolini, who's put up against a wall and shot.
When I started using dynamite, I believed in many things, all of it. Finally, I believe only in dynamite.
The thing that amazes me the most about Sergio's work, they are pure cinematic fun. They're a fucking blast. They are funny.
Fuck you! You go find it for yourself!
Exciting, action-packed, and beautifully shot. We have seen so many films recently where the film is so addicted to its message that it forgets that it's also a film, and they become quite boring and depressing. Leone understood what many did not. It's all well and good for your films to have deeper meanings and nuance, but it's still got to be entertaining. Leone was a true testament to balanced storytelling. He found the perfect recipe between captivating and provoking an audience.
I think it was always a genre first aspect. I don't think he was truly trying to get at the bottom of the human heart. He was trying to get at the bottom of genre archetypes that he was interested in.
Everything is epic in a Leone movie, not just the shootouts and the battle scenes, but the moments in between. Those are the types of things that only cinema can do, that only a director can bring to bear.
By the time he got shooting, he had an absolutely clear idea of what he wanted.
The way he brings all the departments together into one great orchestra, so finely tuned to the complex emotions playing out in front of you. It's just an inspiration to watch all the time.
He's found a brand. He's found a way to tell the stories that no one has ever gone close to. I will always look at you as one of the giants whose shoulders you've allowed me to stand on.